I really connected with the moment in class when Cleo pointed out that there is such a thing as meeting a child's needs too much. Before taking the class, I thought early childhood education was about learning how to fully engage with children in ways that made them feel respected, understood, and help them on a path towards independence. I definitely romanticized the idea of children. From my own reflection, I was able to see how T. Barry Brazelton and Stanley I. Greenspan's work on the irreducible needs of children also tends to romanticize the idea of who children are, as well as the responsibilities of parenthood. I must work to engage with understanding that the child is a complex being. I tend to not give them enough credit during the hustle and bustle of daily life. But at the same time, I need to be aware of how I tend to romanticize the idea of the child as innocent, dependent, and in need of protection. From our massively intimidating conversations about the conversations of race, class, gender, policy, the only definite answer I found was that there is no right answer, only gray area that we can continuously struggle to navigate. At the end of the day, children are people. And based on our different projects, our class conversations, and other readings, I believe everything we have covered intersects at a desire of wanting to belong. As we have proven throughout the course, issues come up as we try to fit the individual and the community difference and belonging all together. And I consider the need to belong not only an irreducible need of a child, but an irreducible need of people.
Thank you, Allie. So we want me to put it in here? Ready? Yeah. I'm going to give Nina your bag, okay?
In a nutshell, I think Brazelton and Greenspan's work on the irreducible needs of children successfully tells their audience to think again about how they understand children. They make their audience consider who are the key caregivers and influencers, what experiences are expected, how is difference addressed, how are children part of a larger community. Unfortunately, most of their suggestions are presented as the only right way, when really their irreducible needs are embedded in cultural bias, and therefore should be presented merely as one perspective. In an interview, Brazelton explains, "First, let me tell you why we wrote this book. People are so overwhelmed. Parents are so overwhelmed. While they are whirling around, they don't have time to stop and think. What are my values? Do my children really come first? Am I making time for them in my life? No one can do everything. People need to set some limits and set up boundaries. The book is a cry for all of us to think about the needs of children." And it clarifies the intent is never to make people feel guilty, but rather address the fact that we need to make infant daycare much better. Salaries, training, working conditions, reduce the ratios, stress, caregivers, and turnover. Brazelton and Greenspan often build upon their support for ongoing, nurturing relationships and the need for supportive communities. They repeatedly insist all learning begins with nurturing care. Feelings of being cared for, empathized with, and loved build the foundation for feelings of being respected and admired, which in turn build the foundation for inner sense of respect and admiration, internalized standards, that can guide behavior. The ultimate goal for caregivers is to guide children to a place that they are not just pleasing their parents, teachers, or society norms, but they're pleasing their own inner sense of values and goals. These points are hard to argue with.
Tormenting me. My son is 15 months old. I'm consistent when he's in danger as far as discipline goes, but my husband and my father accuse me of not disciplining him enough, and he'll grow up to be a brat. He has a temper when he cries, and he's angry when he doesn't get his way, and he wants to be held a lot by me, and I don't think that's wrong. However, I am under a lot of pressure here because they keep insisting that he's going to be a brat because I don't discipline him.
Well, first of all, I think they ought to handle him their way and you ought to handle him your way, because this in-between is what's got him fired up. Discipline is a long-term process. It takes most of your life, and it means teaching. And you're teaching him every episode how eventually he can discipline himself. But what you do at each episode is really not that critical. My idea of discipline is stop the building up behavior, sit down with him and say, I'm sorry, but you can't do that. Every time you do it, I have to stop you. And eventually he'll learn to stop you.
Rhythmically, opinions about limit setting, structure, and expectations have been an interesting mix of more structured and more flexible approaches throughout the generations. They continue on to explain a large majority of teaching children to internalize limits relies on children's desire to please those around them, or because they're afraid. They also acknowledge the power and influence of role models. They stand behind positive reinforcement rather than fear discipline. They dedicate a large section to describe how the correct kind of discipline best prepares the child to become a positive, kind, and productive adult. So, to connect everything together, here I will counter that rather than putting blood, sweat, and tears to get a child to follow routines and meet expectations, educators and caregivers should put more time and value on developing a child's ability to adapt. For me, valuing adaptability means, in their earliest years, they acknowledge everyone has different perspectives. Instead of expecting their every need met, they will feel more comfortable when they are not. Also, prioritizing adaptability over discipline means they will learn not to fear mistakes to the heightened degree our education system today enforces. Adaptability helps manage striking a balance between feeling safe and comfortable and being pushed past one's comfort zone.